After months of steadfast refusals by Donald Trump to release his tax returns, we now have his tax information for 1 year. The White House says the president earned more than $150 million in 2005, paid $38 million in taxes. The return shows he wrote off $100 million in losses, which reduced the amount he had to pay.
The White House released the details just ahead of the tax forms disclosure on MSNBC. Throughout the campaign, you may remember that Mr. Trump refused to release his returns, saying they were under audit. Later, one of his top aides said he's not going to release them at all since he won the election.
Well, joining us here now in Los Angeles, Democratic strategist Dave Jacobson, Republican consultant John Thomas. Also with us, CNN's senior reporter for media and politics, Dylan Byers. Good to have you all with us.
Welcome, everyone.
OK, so John, first you, the breaking news here is that a rich guy made a lot of money and then paid a pretty decent amount of tax on it, at a rate of around 25%, which is actually more than President Obama paid in 2015. His effective tax rate was 19.6%.
And more than Bernie Sanders, I think, at 13 or 14%. Yeah. And more than a lot of corporations. I mean, look, I don't know if the president's audit is over, but clearly he had reasons that he didn't want to release it before. And guess what? He pays taxes. It's amazing, like every other American. I think we just need to go back and say, baby, I'm sorry.
Listen, before we get any further down this road, because you're gloating practically.
Well, 1 year, though. There's still a lot of years to come.
Practically levitating.
And undoubtedly, as a real estate developer, he's had years where he paid less taxes and more taxes depending upon his business.
Okay, let's read the White House statement, because they effectively killed the story before MSNBC released the details. And this is what they said. Mr. Trump paid $38 million even after taking into account large-scale depreciation for construction on an income of more than $150 million, as well as paying tens of millions of dollars in other taxes, such as sales and excise taxes and employment taxes. And this illegally published return proves just that. Despite the substantial income figure and tax paid, it is totally illegal to steal and publish tax returns. The dishonest media can continue to make this part of their agenda, while the president will focus on his, which includes tax reform that will benefit all Americans. Dave, is this story dead on arrival?
Not necessarily. I think it could potentially be the tip of the iceberg, right? And I think the fact that the White House proactively had this sort of knee-jerk reaction after they saw Rachel Maddow, the host of MSNBC that ran the story earlier, after they saw the tweet, they proactively went out, jumped the gun, and issued this statement. And I think it really undermines their argument, right? They've been saying this whole time throughout the course of the campaign, oh, well, the president's under audit by the IRS. Well, clearly they're not. If they're going to jump the gun and issue this statement, I think it's going to raise real questions at the podium tomorrow for Press Secretary Sean Spicer on why they're hiding the other tax returns and whether or not there's any real information that we can get in the weeks and months ahead in terms of other years, other tax returns, and what's exactly under audit. Is it 1 year or is it a decade? What is it?
Okay, Dylan, to you, in terms of how this story was reported by MSNBC, as Dave mentioned, it all started with that tweet from their main anchor, Rachel Maddow. She tweeted this: "We've got Trump tax returns tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, MSNBC. Seriously." That tweet went out at 7:36 p.m. Eastern time. There was a countdown clock on the network leading up to the big reveal. Maddow then spent about 17 minutes posing some very good questions. We had a commercial break, and then finally we got to this moment.
What I have here is a copy of Donald Trump's tax returns. We have his federal tax return for 1 year for 2005. I believe this is the only set of the president's federal taxes that reporters have ever gotten a hold of. What we have are these 2 pages, front and back.
Dylan, it seems the only problem here is that Rachel Maddow actually did not have the tax return. She had a summary of 2 pages, and they did not answer any of the questions which she posed in the lead-up.
Right, that's absolutely right. And look, I would agree with Dave when I say that this could indeed be the tip of the iceberg, but the way that it was handled by MSNBC, frankly, was a little bit irresponsible, because what it ended up doing is it ended up giving, it disappointed, first of all, everyone who thought that Rachel Maddow had found, the sort of holy grail of research on Trump. It also gave fodder to Republicans to go after legitimate inquiries by the media into Trump's tax returns. I mean, all you have to do is look at a tweet from Hillary Clinton's campaign press secretary after Rachel Maddow announced that she had this breaking news, when he said, "This is the Holy Grail," and then his tweet after she actually revealed what she had, And he said, look, Democrats shouldn't get distracted by 2 pages of tax documents. They should go back to focusing on other more significant questions. I mean, look, having these tax documents is a good thing. Releasing them, showing them to the public is a good thing for journalists to do. What's not good is to hype this up so much that it becomes a huge distraction when you don't actually have the goods. And that is the mistake that MSNBC and Rachel Maddow made tonight.
Dylan, staying with you, the issue of how they got them, I know it came via journalist David K. Johnson. The fact that, as he pointed out, they appeared, it was effectively a leak. What do you make of that and the timing here?
Well, the timing is beneficial to Donald Trump, and that's the other thing I should mention is that, you know, this is ultimately, as even CNBC, the sister network to MSNBC, said, this is ultimately a victory for Trump, handed to Trump by Rachel Maddow. I think the Trump folks are celebrating, and I think, look, David K. Johnson, the journalist who got these 2 pages, acknowledged that these could very well have come from Trump himself, because at the end of the day, they distract from all of the other important issues out there that we should be talking about, and they actually show at least 1 year in which he did pay taxes, and as you said, a tax rate that was higher than that of President Obama's in 2015.
Okay, well, after the show went to air, Donald Trump Jr. tweeted this out. Thank you, Rachel Maddow, for proving to your Trump-hating followers how successful Donald Trump is and that he paid $40 million in taxes, $38 million. You know, and to Dylan's point, Dave, did MSNBC and Rachel Maddow do a huge favor for Donald Trump? Because, you know, we're now talking about his taxes. We're not talking about the Obamacare replacement, which is riddled with holes. We're not talking about Russia. We're not talking about surveillance or wiretapping.
I think from the Democrats' perspective, it's really like how they frame the narrative here. Donald Trump talks about how, you know, in his plan that he released, that he wanted to do away with the alternative minimum tax. That's $31 million that he paid in 2005, at a time when he is pushing this health care plan where he wants to gut Medicare coverage from seniors, from poor people who depend on the Affordable Care Act. So you've got this sort of juxtaposition where you've got this guy, yes, he did pay $31 million in taxes, but if he had it his way, that tax would cease to exist at the same time where he wants to gut services and slash funding for critical health care services that people's lives depend on. So I think from a Democrat's perspective, it's really how they argue this narrative moving forward.
But one thing, John, they're certainly going to argue is this narrative of being under siege by the media.
And that's the problem is it just feeds into the victim that the Trump campaign wants to play. And yeah, it's a big score. First of all, Trump paid lots of taxes. He'll probably always pay lots of taxes, but he also makes lots of money. I don't think Trump's just trying to give himself tax breaks. He's still going to have a lot of money at the end of the day.
That's fine, but I'd also argue that the tax issue isn't a good issue for Donald Trump, because as he looks to 2020, for example, states like California that are really important in a presidential race, it's the largest state in the union, they've actually got legislation going through the legislature right now that will ensure that anybody who wants to be on the ballot to run for president in California actually has to disclose their tax return. So this isn't necessarily a good issue for him.
Okay, quickly, do you think Trump released it? Did he leak it?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, now later in the show, Maddow explained one of the most important angles to this story. This came really late in the hour. Listen to this.
The story here to me is A, that we have obtained this, B, that this stuff is obtainable.
Yes.
There has been a lot of interesting reporting recently on how if you work at the IRS, it is not likely that you would be able to see a return for somebody who you weren't involved with.
The president's tax returns are put in a special vault in the commissioner's office.
Really? Versions of his tax returns have ended up all sorts of places, whether it's in casino license applications, personal applications of any kind, and for some reason, somebody who had access to this one wanted it to be known. I believe this will not be the end of that.
So, Dylan, how significant is Rachel Maddow's take on all of this? That the actual tax return itself is not of significance, but the fact it was leaked to the media is what is important here.
Well, I think that's the argument that both she and others at MSNBC and NBC will make in terms of why this report was worth hyping up and why it was so effective. And that's, look, this proves that this information can be released. It obviously should be released. I don't think anyone can stand on solid ground and argue that Donald Trump's tax returns aren't relevant to the American people. I think the problem here is that was not the context in which the network set up this big reveal. They sort of set it up as if they had the goods. And the problem there, to go back to this question about the sort of anti-media narrative and the media barrage, I watched Sean Hannity's program, which came on immediately after Rachel Maddow's, his program, of course, on Fox News. And they went to town on the media. And look, they do that every night, but it's hard not to argue that the media, that Rachel Maddow and NBC didn't give them quite a bit of fodder with which to do that.
Yeah, as Hannity called it an NBC jihad against the president.
And Rachel was encouraging theft in that comment. It's if Trump doesn't want to release his returns, fine, let the American people decide. And they did that wasn't their top priority. But she's basically saying, if you want something, go and get it.
Well, she argued under the First Amendment that she was, they have a right to publish this sort of stuff.
The question is, can President Trump stay off Twitter in the light of this, or is Rachel Maddow now his new target?
I think there's going to be some bragging going on over the next couple days.
Dave?
I don't know. I mean, you never know with this president. The reality is he could tweet something at 6 o'clock in the morning that there's aliens coming in from Jupiter, approaching our atmosphere. So who knows with Donald Trump?
We'll see. Okay.
Gentlemen, a
David
pleasure.
Joy. And
Thank
Dylan as
you.
well. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.